We are in section 6, the practice capability development. There are various practice capability levels. But before we get into that, we have to acknowledge that the practice success factors that we discussed earlier in section 1 cannot be developed overnight. And the maturity model of ITIL defines the 5 capability levels applicable to any management practice in ITIL. Level 1 is the least, 5 is the highest. At level 1, the practice is not well organized. It is performed as an initial or intuitive in a habitual way. Therefore, it may achieve its purpose only partially or not even achieve or only sometimes. And that is because the set of activities are incomplete. For example, the processes are not fully established, the responsibilities are not fully established, and so on. At level 2, the practice systematically achieves its purpose through a basic set of activities supported by specialized resources. So we have the relationship manager and the relationship agent, those roles in place. So note the word systematic, basic set of activities, specialized resources. Level 3, here the practice is well defined and achieves its purpose in an organized way, using dedicated resources, relies on inputs from other practices that are integrated into a service management system. What this means is well-defined, organized, dedicated resources. So those specialist resources, relationship manager, agents, these are dedicated. And the other practices are integrated, meaning there is a value stream integration at level 3 only. There is also supplier integration at level 3. Other suppliers are integrated and into the provider organization. And the information sources, etc., are also integrated. So it's an integrated information management system. The word integration is key at level 3. At level 4, the practice achieves its purpose in a highly organized way, and its performance is continually measured and assessed in the context of the service management system, meaning the metrics are defined at level 4. They are measured regularly, and there is also assessment of the measurement and reporting to stakeholders. Level 5, the practice is continually improving organizational capabilities associated with its purpose, meaning at level 5, the practice performance is reviewed based on the reports and other inputs, and there is improvement of the practice. Here we see that ITIL has 34 practices. These are management capabilities of the organization. Every practice has practice success factors, which can range between 2 to 4. And the PSFs fulfill the purpose of the practice. And each of the PSFs or the practice success factor have certain capability criteria at each level of the ITIL capability model. So we're going to look at now at the various capability criteria applicable at each level for each of the practice success factor. So just a bit of repeat here as to what I spoke earlier. There are criteria for each capability level of ITIL, level 2 to 5. And these criteria help to assess the practice ability to fulfill its purpose and to contribute to the organization's service value system. These criteria come from the 4 dimensions of service management and applicable to various levels of capability, the 5 levels that is. And of course, the higher the capability level, the realization of the practice is more comprehensive. For example, automation typically happens at level 3 or higher because it is possible only if the practice is well defined and organized at level 2 first. However, there are practices where automation is already in place at level 2 rather than at level 3. In fact, in this practice of relationship management, the automation is already in place at level 2, which means automation is an important aspect of the practice, though it's a human-oriented practice. So let's look at the capability tables now. We have the tables coming up for each practice success factor or PSF, and we will see various criteria listed for each PSF. And we also see the dimension and capability level listed. We would now have to remember the capability level for the exam. You need to have a general familiarity with what happens at each level. However, we should know the criteria. Each of the criteria against each PSF should be known, because in the exam you may have questions around you may be given a criterion and you will have to assign the criterion to a specific PSF, or you may be given a PSF and you have to identify which criterion applies to that PSF. You may have a dimension question as well. However, dimension question should be easy to detect the answer. So let's look at the first PSF. This is about the approach to the relationship management to be established and continually improved. And you will see the first criterion is that key internal external stakeholders are identified, and the relationship with those stakeholders are mapped and maintained across the various value streams. And the responsibility for the relationship management framework is clearly assigned, and the framework is aligned with the practices of the key partners, and the information about stakeholders and relationships is organized and managed in an integrated way. The overall relationship management framework is integrated with other standards and approaches adopted by the organization. The effectiveness of the relationship management framework is regularly assessed, and the overall framework is continually improved based on the measurements, feedback, and changing objectives. So how to remember all this for the exam? You need to look out for anything connected with the overall approach or a framework, that is framework, model, approach, and you will see those in these criteria as words. Whereas we have the other criteria which are about healthy relationships within the organization and healthy relationships with external stakeholders. So you will have good clues in the exam, whether it's about relationship with internal stakeholders or with external stakeholders, or is it about the approach to the practice. The next one is about the healthy relationship within the organization, that PSF. And you will see here always the word internal appearing for each of these criteria. So we can see them now, that the internal stakeholders and their interest and relationships are identified, and they are also mapped, and the relationship management objectives are agreed, and the responsibilities for such relationships management are clearly assigned, and such relationships are managed across the organization's value streams and even tracked and assessed in an integrated information system and regularly reviewed and continually improved. So this is more easier to remember, by which you can eliminate these, and then where necessary, you can zoom in whether the criteria given to you is from the other PSF that we went through earlier, the approach PSF. Then we have the last PSF, which is about healthy relationships between the organization and its external stakeholders. So you will see the word external appearing in all these criteria. So running through this list, we see the following. External stakeholders and their interest and relationships are identified, and they're also mapped, and the objectives are agreed for the relationship management, and the responsibilities for the same are clearly assigned, and the managed relationships are managed across the value streams and across the supply chain, and tracked and assessed in the integrated information system, and regularly reviewed and continually improved. So given that this PSF for the external relationships and the previous PSF for the internal relationships are easy to detect in the exam, the criteria, that is, and anything doesn't appear in these two PSFs will therefore become the criteria for the first PSF, which was about the approach for the practice.